So I went from the military, I went to big bureaucracies. I went to high tech. I went to defense contracting with Northrop Grumman. I went to work for the National Security Agency. So all big, very process-oriented companies. And you know what? That was fun for a while, but all I was doing was padding my resume.
Hello, and welcome to Along the Way Life's Journey. I'm your host, Carl Buccellato. Let's get the next journey started. My guest today is Dr. Tracey C. Jones, and she has both received and given out life-changing motivation and inspiration. Tracey is the daughter of the late, great Charlie Tremendous Jones, a world-renowned leader and inspirational speaker. Tracey is the president of Tremendous Leadership and T3 Solutions, Inc. She has been trained in numerous disciplines, receiving her degrees from the New Mexico Military Institute, the United States Air Force Academy, the University of Phoenix, and the Lancaster Bible College. That's quite an array, Tracey. She, like her father, is a nationally regarded expert in leadership, and after serving 12 years of active duty with the United States Air Force, she completed her service as a major and now is focused on building her career in the private sector. She is married and active in charities and social networking to support small businesses, animal rescues, and veterans issues. This is indeed a woman of excellence. Please welcome Dr. Tracey C. Jones.
Thank you, tremendous Carl. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you so much. Is it all right if I called you Tracey, or must I call you Dr. Jones?
Tracey is fine. Thank you for asking.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you here today. I look over your bio and all the things that you've accomplished, and I see before me a woman who is a scholar, a warrior, a person who served her nation, an individual who came into a completely different environment and took over a family business that had been around for a long time and carried it through for future, an author, a speaker, a leader. My goodness, woman, is there anything you don't do?
I'm sure there's plenty more. I'm tall, but I can't play basketball. If you've ever seen me do that, people would call me Too Tall Jones, and I'm like, you've never seen me on the court. So there are some areas I'm not gifted in, and I allow other people to come in alongside me and take care of that. So
we'll chat a little bit about the business and the books that you produce and the programs that you do in leadership, because there are many. But first, give us a little background about who is Tracey? Tracey being born into a family led by Tremendous Charlie.
Well, I always say in life, you're pretty much a composite of three things: nature, nurture, and your life experiences. So it's kind of your influences, your imprinting growing up, and then your inspiration as a young adult who influences you. So I was born the fifth out of six, so big family to Gloria and Charlie Jones, South Central Pennsylvania. My mom was from Lancaster. That's where they met. So really grew up in a wonderful family, salt of the earth. My father came from really humble backgrounds, and my mother the same. So they really always taught us the value of work. Of course, then growing up with a motivational speaker for a father, I tell folks, was a little bit like a cross between boot camp and a sitcom. So it was very regimented. I mean, I can remember when I was in kindergarten, sitting at the dinner table, we gathered for meals every meal and discuss books or goals or what you learned. And Dad saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or what do you want to do next? I'm like, Daddy, I just want to make it to first grade. So he was very much always had us thinking about our future selves and becoming better. The other thing he really did, Carl, was he had us read books, and we would read books to earn money. Now, our summers, unlike a lot of people today, young people today, you didn't get to sit at home. You did sports, you did volunteer, you did chores around the house, you read books and did book reports. And so we didn't have TVs in our house. He took them all out because he's like, you don't need to watch the boob tube. And of course, as a child, I was just convinced that this was child abuse. And now I look back and I'm like, I'm so thankful. But he's like, look, when you're living on your own, you can digest what you want. But while you're under my roof, I'm going to guide you. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to discipline you with love. And I'm so thankful for it. So we grew up with books, and I grew up following him. I am my father's daughter. I look like him. I pulled his genetic markers. I have his temperament. I really got him. Like for the parents listening, you probably have, if you have multiple children, you probably have one that really is like mini you, kind of thing. And so I'm very much my father's daughter. So he would take me to his meetings when he was speaking. And so from being 3 years up, I would go and sit under the tutelage of men and women like Zig Ziglar, Norman Vincent Peale, Og Mandino, the big Amway conventions. And so watching these people really talk about developing people in the organizations, the power of books. Here's a product that can change others' lives, and here's how you can build wealth for yourself, and understanding the free enterprise system and helping people live their dreams and not just be a cog in the wheel. So looking at this as a little child, I would look at these people on stage and go, they're the real deal. They have paid the price. They've earned their stripes, as my father used to tell me, you got to earn your stripes. And they really went out, and it wasn't all about them, but then it was about them helping others achieve greatness in their own. So these are all the things I had growing up.
It was their vocation to lift others up.
Exactly. And that is the highest calling. And I think whatever your life mission is, as long as it involves inspiring greatness in others, that's really what leadership is all about. So got out of there. He went down to New Mexico Military Institute, came back with a flyer and said, oh, these kids are really going to make something of themselves. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go there. So I went out to Roswell, New Mexico. I tell people this is before the aliens were around. Because everybody's like, Roswell. And like the X-Files. Yeah. And I'm like a sci-fi fanatic. So I was like, I'm going to Roswell. And he said, go there. So I went there and I got my associate's degree, and they got me an appointment to the Air Force Academy, which is all, and I fell in love with the West, New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona. I'm a cowgirl at heart. So I was like, oh, I love this. So went there and then went into the military, had 12 phenomenal years, went to the first Gulf War, the Bosnian War, worked on fighter jets. You can see one of the ones the F-15E back there. And then I was like, okay, what's next? Because Carl, I always had, of course, being raised by entrepreneurs, I was like, but that's them. I'm an engineer by trade. I'm very analytical. That's rah-rah. That's woo-woo. That's fluffy. But I'm a very data-driven metric girl. And I thought, that's not for me. So I went from the military, I went to big bureaucracies. I went to high tech. I went to defense contracting with Northrop Grumman. I went to work for the National Security Agency. So all big, very process-oriented companies. And you know what? That was fun for a while. But all I was doing was padding my resume. I was not being authentic. And when my father passed, emigrated to heaven in 2008, I thought, you know what? I spent 20 years living all over the world, doing all kinds of cool things, but I'm going to come back, and I'm either going to put a bow on what he started and put it on the shelf, or I'm going to move into the world of independent publishing and motivational speaking and leadership. And that was it. So by the grace of God, 13 years later, and the support of people like you, the legacy goes on, and it's just such an honor. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, it's a great story, and you should stick to it. And I'm sure along the way, there are many people you touched who have been motivated by you and excelled into their own life's experiences and what they were destined to be. And I always find that to be true with people like you that I interview. I love to interview people like you because you not only know who you are, you know what you want to do, and you know how to go about doing it. And you do that as an example for others. And to me, that's wonderful. I just interviewed someone. He makes a story, a message of saying he stands on the shoulders of those who came before him. And his goal is to get others to stand on shoulders above him. And I think that's wonderful. We have to know who we are in the scheme of life and what our role is. And you certainly seem to know you. You know where you're going.
Thank you, Carl. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Every challenge in life for our listeners out there, if you feel like you're in a rut, or you feel like you're just punching time with the time clock, or there's something else out there. And our demographic, most of our viewers and writers and speakers are like 70 and up. So that's when you really come into your own for our listeners out there. So if you're 30 and you're still wondering, it's okay. It's a process. But the two things everybody struggles with, all of life's problems can be distilled down to one of two issues. One, not knowing exactly what you want. Okay. And that is really what most people struggle with. Or number two, knowing what you want, but not being able to get it. So it's more of a means or a resource thing. So I, like everybody out there, like you, Carl, have struggled with these things. And the beauty of somebody coming into your life is they look at you and they can read your label. It's like I'm a wine bottle and all I can read my labels from the inside out. But you need other people in your life to look at you and say, Carl, you may not know this, but you are really good at this. We're the worst. That's why I have a professional paid mentor. As self-aware and as educated as I am, I still have my own blind spots and I still sell myself short. And I still need somebody else to go, Tracey, you've not addressed that correctly. You've not unpacked that. So they have really helped me figure out, what do I really want? And then number two, you need other people to come in and help you get, because none of us can get there on our own. We need advocates, we need resources, we need knowledge, we need wisdom, we need benefactors, all that stuff. So that's why what you're doing is so important. People think, oh, well, I'll never be that good. That's right. But you will be that good when you connect with the people that are here. Genius does not exist alone. Okay. Genius is done in collaboration and as a collective. And so that's what we have to remember.
I found for myself as well, I'm not labeling myself a genius, although others have, but you cannot excel to the level that you're capable of without being challenged by someone.
Yes.
You have to be challenged. If you're not challenged, it's like when you're injured and your body's injured somehow and you go to a physical therapist and it's painful. So they say, okay, lift that leg a little higher. And you go, oh, I can't do anymore. Well, that's only about 40% of what you're really capable of. And until they challenge you and they push you, you don't know that. You have to push through it. You have to work through it. And that's the same thing with your destiny, I think. I think we have to recognize that what we have, God has given us wonderful things, but some of it hasn't been unwrapped yet. It's still inside the gift. And we have to learn, because we listen to others who see and hear and, as you say, become our mentors. I've had 2 or 3 of those in my life because I've lived a lot longer than you have. And some of them have been wonderful people, but they've gone to heaven long before I did. So I had to get new ones, But it's a real truism. You cannot get there on your own. You can bring a lot of people along with you once you get there, but you cannot get there on your own. You have to be challenged. So I applaud that. I think that's wonderful. And I know you have a couple of books that you've come out with within the last year or two. Some they kind of tie together. One is Bridge It and Build It, which sounds to me like a military exercise. Do we build that bridge or burn it up? And I can see the meaning behind that. And the other is Spark. Tell us a little something about those books.
Absolutely. Well, Spark is the result of my PhD in leadership, where I really studied followership, because, you hear all this stuff, and I saw it on LinkedIn the other day too. Oh, all you need is a great leader and the rest will follow. No, that's not true at all. If you have a great leader, if you don't have great followers, nothing happens. Look at Churchill. Okay. Look how long it took him before people finally realized, on the brink of death, we got to follow this guy. So you have to have, it's a real synergy. You can have a poor leader if you have great followers in an organization, and the organization will be great, but you cannot have a great leader and ineffective followers and have a great organization, because it's an 80-20 rule. The leader's about 20%. Now, yeah, you need great leader to inspire, but you have to have people willing to be inspired. So what I studied was a crisis, a merger. Mergers are scary. Those of you that have been through, if you haven't been through one, you probably will be, because they happen a lot in today's world. That's how a lot of companies grow, is they buy other entities. And I really studied when they went through this crisis, because it was a merger that went south. Did the leader say or do anything that really made the followers go, we're running into the burning building, versus we're running away to another organization? And what I found out, Carl, was not really. In other words, even before the merger, you could tell which people were resilient, were adaptive, which had a perspective on problems like, yeah, no big deal. And I'd like to look at it as some people are a dandelion and some people are an orchid. The dandelions are hardy. You can see a dandelion growing in the middle of the Audubon, and it's like, how does it happen? But it does. Some people, no matter what the environment is, they are so robust and they will find the resources and the stamina, and they will not wilt. Other people are like an orchid. You look at them wrong, you move them, and they wilt and they're gone. And so really it was a study on resiliency. And so that's what the book is about. I distilled my findings into an acronym SPARK, which is SPARK. And those are the 5 things you need to ignite greatness. And the first 2 are intrinsic, your singularity, which is your purpose. We've talked about that, and perseverance. I can't do the work for you, and I don't know what you're supposed to be when you grow up. That's already in you. So that's the intrinsic, that's the internal that is lived out. But then the flip side of the coin, because everything in life has a duality, ARK, advocates, resources, and knowledge. These are the externals that as you go on your journey and you're climbing that mountain, these are the things that you're going to need as you climb new peaks and enter new valleys. So it's really this duality. And I have a little metric, and I do online courses and one-on-one coaching with this. Every problem you have, if you distill it down to those 5 steps, you can find your answer, find your resources, get the knowledge, and get to the next level. But you need that initial spark before the fire, like Bruce Springsteen. You can't start a fire without a spark, right? Everybody wants to be on fire, but you have to find that one thing that does it for you. And you look at people, Carl, you are one, you talk to other people. When you talk to somebody that really is at peace and the freedom and the liberty to know exactly what they want out of life, it is intoxicating to speak with them, because that's what we all want. I'm a believer in Christ. We all have that Imago Dei God seed in us. So the book has a spiritual quotient too, because I believe the biggest advocate of all is the Holy Spirit. Who wouldn't want the creator of the cosmos helping them out?
Absolutely.
And so it really looks at, here's what you need to do up here: head, heart, and spirit. We are a body, we are a soul, and we are a spirit. And when you develop those 3 things, that's a 3-legged stool. You are so sturdy and you are able to serve the world in a new place. And then Bernard or Bridget kind of takes, it's a parable of 2 types of employees you're going to have in your life: employees that rock you or employees that shock you. Okay. And so I look at people, and, as somebody that's been leading organizations for 40 plus years, I just look at this. And so the sooner you find out who's all in your team, the better. And I draw heavily from the book of Proverbs, which in my opinion is the greatest leadership book of all time. Because when people hear something, they have 2 choices. They can fear and revere. In other words, you as a leader, if you share with people, they hear you, they submit to you. That's not a dirty word. They follow you because they respect the organization and the mission. They're part of the collective. Then you have the other camp, the Burnets, who will sneer. I know better. I'm wise in my own eyes. Who are you to tell me? And trust me, in today's workplace, if you look at the polls and the research, a huge swath of the workforce is completely disengaged. Some are actively disengaged, and that means you have burnouts in your organization. And don't waste your time as a leader. Okay, you need to be very shrewd about this. Try and bring it in, but you're responsible to people, not for people. So I really work with leaders and say, can somebody be saved? And the question is, if they're teachable and trainable, absolutely. And if not, absolutely not.
I completely agree with that. Throughout my life, I've had a very long career in business, and I've built and grown major companies. A couple of them have gone public on the New York Stock Exchange and so forth. And at one point in my life, I was the CEO and chairman of the board of a conglomerate hosting 27 under companies in 3 different continents with thousands of employees. And I know exactly what you're talking about. Even when I was at that tower level, I would walk through the organization, stop and talk to people, listen. And there's an innate thing that happens inside of you, especially those of us who've been on the front line. When you've been there on the front line and every second counts, you know what I'm talking about. Every second counts. When you talk to some people, when they're blowing smoke up your nose, and if there's somebody that's really got something worth working for, something worth challenging and lifting them up to a new position. Because even if they hate you for coming in as a new broom in town, if you challenge them and you show them a way to become more than they are, they'll follow you into hell. Doesn't matter. They'll do anything you need if you show them that it benefits them in the long run. That's the key. Got to benefit them, And everyone, I remember the first company I took public, 27 employees in my company became instant millionaires. 27 the day we went public. Now, what did that mean? That means paying off mortgages, paying for students to go to college, paying off student loans, paying for weddings. All those things became real and available to them because they saw an opportunity with a fledgling company. And somebody said to them, this is for you too. We can do this together. And they bought it. And talk about lighting a flame. It was like a nuclear bomb that went off.
Right. But they followed you. They saw the mission. You know what I'm saying? And they wanted, because you know what, Carl, it may not have happened that way.
No.
But they did because because when you chase wealth, then you develop mercenaries. They'll hop to the next thing until they need the next thing. But going on a startup and following a leader with the hope of being a part of something bigger, that is true. That is exemplary followership. And you can only get to that place where you get bigger and somebody sees you and says, I want to buy you because you are powerful, when you have a full, robust talent stack. And that means everybody's all in for the mission, not their individual mission, but the mission of the entity, the collective.
Well, that's marvelous. That's really marvelous. Okay, so you have these books. You have a huge company that you're developing, works for other writers. I just heard you say most of your writers or authors are senior people. It's kind of amazing to me. I don't know why I didn't recognize that, being a senior person myself. So that's a very interesting thing. Was that by design, or is it just happened?
No, I thought, and we have a lot of younger people do, but I thought, coming back, well, I'm young, I'm hip. I'm not really young, but I'm definitely middle age. But I thought I'll appeal to the young, up and coming emerging leaders. And, there is some of that, but for the most part, you let the message resonate, and certainly they come out, but a lot of them are in their 20 to 40 years age. And we call that the learning years. And then 40 to 60 is the earning years, where you're really exchanging your knowledge for capital. And then 60 to 80 is the yearning years, where you're really like, okay, I've done well. I have the resources. I am free to serve. And that's a beautiful place to be in. And why not, Carl? If you take care of your body, your God-given temple, you've got the wisdom of the ages up here. You take care of your body. Why should the last 30 years of your life not be the most productive? Because you need that corporate knowledge, that history, that wisdom, that experience, that sage. And so that's who we're really resonating with and are coming to us. And I think it's incredible.
That's great.
Don't bench yourself with retirement. Don't pull yourself out of the game with retirement. I mean, it's just, if you're not invested in something, and I watch this in the military, people get out of the military and 6 months later, they'd be sick or gone, because you have to have a reason to get up and a reason to live.
My wife will tell you, we've often had this conversation. I don't believe people retire. They just stop doing what they were doing and go on to do something else.
Yes.
That's if you have goals and you have the energy in life and you have a message to deliver, you don't just stop because you stop being that title in that company. You go on to do something else. I'm a living example. I did it, supposedly retired 3 times, but I just moved on, built another company, sold it off, did it again. It's what life brought to me. And some of the greatest experiences in my life were working with American Management Association and guiding other young presidents and how to work and how to come into their own. I've had great experiences being on the boards of publicly traded company and guiding them into become unicorns. There's one particular company I was on the board of. I invested in it when it just began, and there was a little fledgling nothing. And a few years later, it became a unicorn, which means it was at valuation in excess of $1 billion. And it was sold soon after that for an excess of $4 billion. So, those are exciting things to be part of.
They are. And people need your wisdom, because I'm sure, as inspired as you are, you also followed the success steps, the science of success. There's a blueprint to making good decisions in life. Absolutely. And the wisdom is out there, and you study that. People think, well, it's just Carl was just lucky. Hogwash.
No,
yeah, there is something to timing. But God takes care of timing. You take care of everything else. And so you need to share that with people, because that's the entrepreneurial dream.
That's right. And I know that, biblically and spiritually, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I know that's true for me beyond my spiritual walk of life. That's true for me in the wisdom that I can share with others and my experiences in life, and both in business and various life agencies that have changed dramatically over the years. So that's why I wrote that book. That's why I do this podcast. My goal is to bring people like you onto the show so you can tell your story and inspire others to be more than who they can be on their own. It's as simple as that. And I'm so delighted that you will do that. So let's get to that. I know that you had a giant inspiration from your father. There's no doubt about that. But there must have been other people along the way that you've met during your life in the military, in business, that you have inspired you and motivated you to think of you a little differently and maybe move in a little different direction. Can you tell us something about that?
I sure can. Well, first of all, my father was they looked like Ron and Nancy Reagan. My father was tall, dark, outgoing, eloquent, that beautiful voice. And I say my mom was like little petite, beautiful Nancy Reagan. So certainly my mother's grace, her sense of hospitality. She was a godly woman and very different than me. She just wanted to have babies and cook for us. And that was her greatest joy. But she always respected what I did and never made it sound like, you hear a lot about these mother wounds that women from my generation experienced where the mother felt like she had to stay home. She was happy to be doing it and happy to keep the home fires burning when Charles was out speaking 300 days a year in his heyday. So certainly my mother's grace, her beauty, her hospitality. When I got into the military, well, first of all, the one who got me into the Air Force Academy, an appointment, Major Bob Schaefer, just saw something in me. And I didn't even realize in the background what he was doing, that you have to go through this appointment process, either through a senator or a presidential. He's the one that got me into the Air Force Academy. Back in the day, just saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. I mean, I was ready to go back to Pennsylvania after my 1 year there. And he's like, hey, we have this opportunity and I got you an appointment. So here he was working in the background for me. So infinitely, Bob Schaefer, if it weren't for you, I don't know. The door wouldn't have opened for me even to go through because I just wasn't that aware at that age of all the different things that had to be done. And of course, in the military, Major Sandy Grice was one of my commanders when I was a lieutenant at Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina. And she saw something in me. She put me in for every award. She put me in for more and more increased responsibilities. And again, just completely believed in me and just really challenged me and corrected me when I needed to be. Carl, they say there's 18 inches between a pat on the back and a kick in the rear. And a good mentor will constantly be going back and forth, because if you really care about somebody, you're really going to tell them the truth in a way that can break them down so they're built up. And then I remember one of my officers at Shaw also was Dick Alquist, and his call sign was Viking. And I remember one time I jumped the chain of command, and boy, he let me know, and I'll never forget that. But I learned the importance of following the chain, and I needed to get reprimanded for that. And I had a couple people, I can remember people talking to me at my father's event saying, Tracey, there's really something special about you. And that really built my self-efficacy, my belief that I could do what I wanted to do. But I also had as many people that poured into me, pull me aside and say, Tracey, are you aware how you sound? This is not how you want to be perceived. And I was so thankful for that too, especially as a young woman in the military. I had a couple senior officer ladies say, okay, here's the field, here's how it is. And I'm going to tell you, what can happen if you don't conduct yourself a certain way. Thank you. I don't need to learn certain mistakes. You can come back from, but there's consequences that stay with you your whole life. Right. So I had people really just be very pragmatic with me and say, this is the world you're in. This is the good you're going to see. This is the bad. And this is the ugly. Here's what you can control. And so it was always a very much, it's tough. You're not going to always have everybody in your corner. So what? Find the one that are. So I was always very much aware of the settings and the context and the lay of the land. So I never blamed anybody for anything. I just was like, this is what it is. I need to move on and find my peeps or, what jives with me and keep going. So I really had quite a few people. Of course, when I came in to run the business, the outpouring of people that love my father and were like, we loved him, therefore we love you, and we're here to support you. Carl, I couldn't be doing what I am today if it weren't for the people that knew and loved him, reaching out to me. Tracey, what can I do for you? Publishing with me on our trustee board, our authors, lifelong friends, and they're carrying on the legacy. Like Dad changed their life. Now they're changing other people's lives.
Right.
So such a great cloud of witnesses in heaven, but also such a great cloud of advocates here on earth. I'm just so blessed.
You really are a blessed woman. You really are blessed. I'm so happy for you.
Thanks,
and
Carl.
I see that you're married and you have a slew of pets that you and your husband enjoy, and you do all kinds of events. You work out and you go biking and traveling and all. What are the things that you like to do when you're not having to work? When you have the time to pick one of those things and say, okay, I have a few hours today. I'm not going to do any work. I'm just going to go take care of me.
Well, somebody said to me the other day, you can tell if it's your passion because you can't turn it off. So for those of you out there that are at work you love, I mean, like I went to Greenbrier, West Virginia last week, one of the best vacations I've ever had. And you know why it was? Not only did I have a great time with my husband, but I got so much work done because it's not really work. You know what I'm saying? My dad always told me when you're in the right work can be more fun than fun. So I have that intrinsic type A industrious nature. High D, it just is what it is. So, I mean, I love, reading, thinking, praying. Anytime I get on my own, it'll just be calm, quiet, reflective time because I feel like I'm, managing so many things. So a time to just be quiet. And really, I take that time to stop asking God and just thanking God. So really get into the space of just gratitude. And when I have time to just disconnect from everything, that's really what I like spending my time doing.
I have to get you one of Mike DeCioccio's new shirts. Be great and be grateful. That's you're an example of that.
Well, otherwise we're so busy, and busyness isn't a bad thing, but it is if you don't stop and reflect and give thanks to all the people that help you get there, to God who helped you get there, and take care of yourself. And you know what? Celebrate. I coach a lot of people, and boy, they're good. In the minute we achieve a goal, they're still not happy. They feel like they haven't achieved success. And I'm like, stop. You have to celebrate the success and make sure that you give thanks.
Especially if you believe scripture says, not the day or the hour. If you don't make use of the day that you have, you may not have another one.
Absolutely.
May not have. Okay, so we're at 42 minutes, believe it or not. It seems like I just turned on and said, hi, Tracey. But here we are 42 minutes later. So I'll give you the last couple of minutes to say whatever you like. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Carl. Well, I just would love to tell your listeners, please reach out and connect with me. Carl has all the stuff. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. We're all ships rise together. We're here to help others. I have people pouring into me, and I'd love to be an advocate for you. If you've got a book inside of you, if you need to get connected, I don't have all the answers, but I know all the people who have the answers. And so I'd love to just tell the readers. The other thing is, if you're in a space where you feel like you've made a mistake that's too shameful, or you're just in a rut, I just really would encourage you to get in some great books. Everything starts here in your mind with the power of thought, and our emotions follow our thought, and then our behaviors follow our emotion. So prevailing wisdom today is, well, I feel this way, but, and I can't correct that. That all originates up here with the power of thought. And so if you're in a space, and there have been times where I've been so broken, I was ready to close the business. I couldn't even speak to anybody, even my own mother, because I had made such horrific business decisions. Get in the books. There's a school of psychology called bibliotherapy, which I like to say, read 2 books and call me next week. There's something about when we get out of our own way and we get into books and we understand books are one of the greatest transformational tools in the entire universe. I would also recommend you get into the book, the greatest bestseller of all time, which is the Bible. Okay. Or else I like to say basic instructions before leaving Earth. If you want to know, if you even have this inkling, I don't even care if you don't believe in God. God believes in you. And if you want to know if there is a God, you read the book that he created, because when you open the Bible, that is his life-infused wisdom. And people are like, I'm lost. Where is God? He's right there in that book, but you have to open it up and you have to read it. So that's first of all. Then get on great podcasts, connect with people, talk to people, and then put the stuff into action. Okay. You have to find out what you value most in life. And then you have to build up your self-efficacy or your belief that you have a reasonable expectation of success. So everything that you're dealing with, it's up to you to unpeel. Healing happens from the inside out. So the longer you sit back and wait for the magic pill or the right Facebook post or the right check to magically appear, that's not how life is done. It's already in you. Unpack it, open your brain, reach out to people, open your heart, dial in God, and watch what happens.
That's amazing. And I agree with every word you just said. We are 2 and 1 in agreement. So thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Tracey C. Jones, an elegant, educated, forceful warrior, deliverer, a person who follows Christ. I love it, every bit of the package. Thank you so much for that. So now I have to say goodbye to the folks, regrettably. Tracey, we'll do this again sometime, hopefully, because I think there's about 100 other things I'd like to ask, if that's all right with you.
I'd be honored, Carl. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. And remember today, what I tell you every week, tell someone you love them today. Thank you for tuning into the show. I hope that it resonated with you. It certainly did with me. And I hope it encouraged you to realize the true power of your story. As a reminder, new episodes will be released Wednesday mornings on your favorite podcast apps and also on YouTube as well. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn your notification button on to ensure that you receive updates on new episode releases. I'm grateful for your reviews and your support. The love is certainly felt. Keep it coming. You can reach out to connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, or stop by my website, toeverypageofturning.com. All links are clickable in the show notes for quick access. Do you think that you or someone you know may be our most inspiring guest yet? Let's hope so. Click on our contact page and get in touch on my website and share your story. I look forward to reading each one personally. My best-selling book, To Every Page of Turning, which was published by Mascot Books, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, and many more popular book retailers. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Till next time, remember that every day is a new opportunity to write your new page in your incredible journey. And it is incredible. You're the only one who has it.